At my wedding, my ex-friend decided to put on a show. He hit me, broke my arm, and ruined the whole evening. Did he think that was the end? Oh, buddy, that was just the beginning. What I did next made him regret every single step. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Max, I'm 26 years old, and just a couple of weeks ago, I got married. Everything was supposed to be perfect. A beautiful wife, a classy venue, lights, flowers, and that magical atmosphere everyone always talks about. Honestly, I even believed for a second that my life was finally on the right track. But give me a moment to explain how everything spiraled into chaos right at my own wedding celebration. So, picture this. I'm standing like the hero of a romantic comedy, holding my wife's hand, smiling, surrounded by friends, family, and warm vibes. And then the doors swing open like it's some Hollywood drama, and in bursts Sam, my former best friend. Yeah, the same guy I, take note, didn't invite. Why? Because a year ago, he spread such vicious rumors about me that even an old lady on a park bench would have envied his imagination. But I decided it was time to move on, to leave that drama behind like some silly teenage squabble. How wrong I was. Sam didn't just crash the wedding, he practically turned it into his final performance, like he needed a climactic scene in his own tragicomedy. I could already see people turning, whispering, some clearly nervous. My wife squeezed my hand tighter, and I knew this day was going to take a nosedive into disaster. "Max! Dude, what the hell are you doing?" he shouted as the room fell silent. Oh yeah, Sam was on fire. He looked like he'd just walked out of a bar, leaving behind half his brain and all traces of common sense. The entire venue fell silent. I felt anger boiling up inside me, but I tried to stay calm. See, I'm the kind of person who endures until the very last moment, and then, well, let's just say, I don't hold back. And there he stood, wild-eyed, clearly drunk, shouting about how this wedding was a joke and how my wife deserves better, as if anyone had asked for his opinion. Max, bro, she deserves someone who can actually handle her, you know? Sam kept spewing nonsense as he stumbled through the crowd of guests, who were backing away like they were avoiding a virus. The irony of the moment. Just a year ago, this guy and I were inseparable. Like brothers, you know? We did everything together, told each other every secret. But then, at some point, things went south. As soon as his life started going down the drain, he decided to drag me along with him. It started with small jabs, and then full-blown rumors about how I had supposedly betrayed his trust. He was destroying me in front of our mutual friends, and I just stood by, watching it all crumble. But this was too much. I'm getting married, starting a new chapter, and he decides to stage his show right here, at a moment when everything should be happily ever after. Not today, man, not today. My wife looked at me with quiet panic in her eyes, and I felt something snap inside. A deep, simmering rage took hold, and it wasn't the kind of anger that ends with a dumb handshake and, let's forget about it. No, I was about to handle this properly. Get the hell out of here, Sam, I growled through clenched teeth. Sam stormed into the venue like it was his own personal party. Now picture this, a guy, drunk out of his mind, eyes gleaming like he'd just hit the jackpot, and the only thing he could think to do was start yelling at the top of his lungs, like anyone cared about his opinion. "This wedding is a joke!" he screamed, nearly knocking over the decorations. All the guests, including my parents, just froze. It was like someone hit pause on a movie, and no one knew how to rewind it. Then, staggering, he got way too close. I could smell him. A mix of cheap whiskey and something he probably ate 3 days ago. Lovely, right? And there he was, just inches away, breathing on me like a dragon after a night at the bar, and hissing, "Max, you don't deserve her, bro." It came out like he was revealing the secret of the universe to me. My wife, poor thing, immediately tried to stop him. "Sam, stop! You're making a scene," she whispered. But Sam was already off in his own world. He wasn't just out of control. He was like a walking disaster, and this was all playing out right in front of me. It was as if, in his mind, Everything revolved around me and this sham of a wedding. Sure, Sam, you're definitely the sane one here. He stepped closer, and I could feel my hands start to tremble. Not from fear, but from rage. At that moment, I wanted to tear everything apart. You know that feeling when you're so mad that you can literally feel something explosive building inside you? That's what this was. But instead of snapping, I stood there, locking eyes with him, trying to keep it together. Sam, get the hell out before I lose it, I hissed, barely keeping my emotions in check. Do you think he listened? Of course not. He gave me this look, like I was some kind of loser, and leaned in closer. She deserves better than you, Max, he repeated, with a face like he was the world's leading expert on relationships and marriage. I could see his fist clenching, like he was waiting for me to provoke him. My wife was still trying to stop him, but she didn't stand a chance. Sam wasn't listening to anyone. He was like a man who had already made up his mind to destroy everything in front of him, just because he could. And I knew if I didn't act now, things would only get worse. But you know what was the most frustrating part? It wasn't just how Sam was acting. It was that all these people, my friends, my family, were just standing there, watching. No one knew how to react. Because it was so unexpected and so stupid, I realized this was only the beginning. I couldn't take this circus any longer. Moving closer to Sam, I decided it was time to toss him out of the hall like an unfinished drink. All right, man, enough. Time to go, I said, grabbing his shoulder, trying to push him towards the door. But you know how in movies the hero thinks he's in control, and then, bam, everything goes sideways? That's exactly what happened to me. Sam, without warning, swung and punched me square in the jaw. Yup, right in the face. And let me tell you, it wasn't one of those light shoves. This was a real hit, and it nearly knocked me out. I stumbled, my mind going blank for a second. What the? Was all I could think. But I didn't have time to recover, because the next moment, Sam shoved me straight into the snack table. Yes, the very table with all the fancy hors d'oeuvres, fruits, and everything you'd expect at the perfect wedding. And then everything slowed down. Picture this. I'm flying towards the table, like some action hero in slow motion, and it's all happening to the sound of gasps from my guests. And then, boom! I crash into the table, and it collapses under me, with food flying everywhere. Shock? That doesn't even cover it. At that moment, I felt a sharp stabbing pain in my arm. Literally, like someone had shoved a hot knife right into the bone. Oh, hell, my arm's broken, flashed through my mind. My arm hung limp, useless, and I knew something was seriously wrong. The pain was so intense that for a moment, I forgot about Sam and everything happening around me. The whole room gasped, and some guests had already frantically started calling the police. I could hear people whispering, yelling, but it was distant, like through a thick haze. My wife rushed to me in panic, and I was trying to pull myself together, at least to figure out what the hell was going on. And then it hit me. It wasn't just the pain in my arm that was the problem. Everything that had just happened in those last few seconds had completely ripped control from my hands. They practically lifted me off the floor like a broken toy. I was clutching my arm, which now looked like it had been snapped by a professional wrestler. But the pain was secondary to the fury boiling inside me. Everything around me screamed, "Stay calm." But how can you stay calm when you've been humiliated in front of everyone important in your life? Tears started welling up in my eyes, not so much from the pain in my arm, but from that feeling of helplessness. But instead of breaking down, I gritted my teeth and hissed, "You're gonna regret this, Sam." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I could feel the rage dripping from my words. Sam, instead of backing off or realizing he'd gone way too far, laughed. No, not just laughed. He laughed hysterically, with that crazed glint in his eyes that only people who've lost all sense of decency have. His eyes sparkled with alcohol and, frankly, insanity. "You were never my friend, Max," he growled, as if this was his final statement on our once strong friendship. "Everyone here knows it." And what do you think happened? The room fell silent again, as all the guests glued their eyes to this spectacle, like it was the climactic act of $1 million drama. But Sam didn't get to finish his show. At that moment, the security team, whom someone had thankfully called, grabbed him by the arms and started dragging him out of the venue. He kept trying to yell something about our lies and fake friendship, but it all sounded like drunken ramblings from someone who'd completely lost touch with reality. But even though they physically dragged him out, the story was far from over. Yes, Sam was out of the picture, but the damage he left behind was much deeper than just a few broken bones and a ruined wedding. I knew this was only the beginning. They took me to the hospital, and let me tell you, it was like I'd stepped into a bad movie. I was in a total daze, feeling the mix of adrenaline and that sharp pounding pain shooting through my arm. The doctors were running around, poking and prodding, and someone confirmed that, yep, my arm was broken. Well, thanks, Doc, because that wasn't already obvious from the way it dangled like a useless limb. But honestly, that wasn't what had my mind spinning. While they were busy wrapping my arm in a cast, my thoughts were a million miles away from the injury. It was one simple, crystal-clear question that played over and over in my head. How far should I go to destroy this guy? The words echoed in my mind like a challenge I was ready to accept. Sam had crossed a line you don't come back from. This wasn't just a stupid wedding brawl where people would shrug it off and laugh about it later. No. This idiot didn't just throw a punch. He took the most important day of my life and turned it into a disaster, leave in front of my entire family and friends. The humiliation still burned in my chest. Lying there in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling as they finished with my cast, it hit me. This wasn't just about a single fight. This was war. And I wasn't planning on losing. Have you ever had that moment where something inside just snaps into place? Like all of a sudden, you know exactly what you need to do, and there's no room for maybe, or let's be reasonable. Yeah, that was me. I felt that switch flip, and the pain in my arm became nothing more than background noise to the firestorm building inside my head. The doctor asked me some questions, but I barely heard him. All I could think about was Sam. The audacity of that guy, the smug look on his face as he thought he got away with it. No way he's walking away from this, I promised myself. Revenge wasn't an option. It was a necessity. I wasn't just going to let him brush this off. No, he was going to feel every ounce of the humiliation, pain, and rage that he dumped on me that night. And trust me, my revenge wasn't just some wild threat I threw out in the heat of the moment. Every thought was carefully crafting a plan. I wasn't going to stoop to some childish fight or cheap punch. That was too simple, too quick. No, I was going to dismantle his life, piece by piece, in a way that left him feeling just as powerless as I had, lying there with that cast on my arm. If Sam thought he could waltz into my life, ruin everything, and walk away unscathed, he had another thing coming. And this was just the beginning. Once I started pulling myself together, it was like everything clicked into place. The fog of pain and anger cleared, and the plan started forming in my head like a grenade with the pin already pulled. I wasn't going to sit there and mope, staring at my broken arm like it was some kind of life-shattering tragedy. No way. I had bigger things to focus on. Sam, Mr. Perfect, the guy with the spotless reputation, was my new project. By all appearances, he was the golden boy of some fancy, high-status company, wearing a suit and tie like it made him untouchable. But I knew better. The Sam I knew wasn't an angel. He was a manipulator, a puppet master who thought he could play everyone around him. And I was about to flip the script. The first thing I did, after collecting myself, was start digging. If Sam had mastered the art of ruining lives, why not use that same playbook against him? Karma, as they say, is a real thing, and I was about to show him how it works. I reached out to a couple of mutual acquaintances, people who had also gotten a taste of Sam's dirty tactics. At first, they were hesitant. No one really likes to revisit old wounds. But the moment I mentioned that I was on a mission to dismantle his life, their hesitation vanished. Revenge, it turns out, is a powerful motivator. Who wouldn't want a chance to help tear down the guy who burned them? "Dude, you won't believe what he pulled on me," one of them started, and it was like opening a Pandora's box. The stories poured out, how Sam had used them, manipulated situations to his advantage, and then left them to pick up the pieces when things went south. I sat back, listening and smiling to myself. The more I heard, the more the puzzle pieces fell into place. Sam had created a perfect facade at work. Clean, reliable, trustworthy. But behind the scenes, he was burning bridges and stepping on people to get ahead. Classic. But here's the thing. No one gets away with that forever. I knew that somewhere, somehow, he'd left traces behind. Cracks in the armor that I could exploit. And oh boy, did I find those cracks. One by one, I pieced together every shady move, every backstab, every lie he'd told his colleagues to make himself look good. The guy was practically a walking disaster, hiding behind a mask of professionalism. So, the plan became clear. I'm going to ruin his career, I told myself, and that became my mission. This wasn't about throwing a punch or getting even in some basic way. No, I was going to hit him where it hurt the most. His livelihood. That fancy job he worked so hard to protect, that spotless reputation he cherished so much. I was going to tear it all down. And the more I dug, the more dirt I found. It was like Sam had left me a roadmap to his own destruction, and I was more than happy to follow it. I knew exactly what I was doing. Sam might have thought he was the master manipulator, the one pulling the strings. But now I was the one controlling the game. This wasn't just revenge, it was a carefully laid plan for total destruction. And let me tell you, I was just getting started. Things started moving quicker than I had ever anticipated. My little game with Sam was unfolding perfectly, and it was almost too easy. If he thought that humiliating me at my own wedding would go without consequences, well, he was about to learn a very hard lesson. I didn't go for an all-out attack right away. No, I knew better than that. I started small, subtle, but devastating. The first step? A few fake client profiles, each with their own carefully crafted backstory and complaints about Sam's unprofessionalism. These weren't just generic reviews either. They were masterpieces of calculated destruction. This guy forgot my order 3 times. I literally had to handhold him through the process. I wrote, pretending to be an outraged customer. And I didn't stop there. I sprinkled in some complaints about his so-called rudeness and terrible customer service. You know, just to give it that extra touch of believability. I wanted every word to feel like a dagger, each review a nail in the coffin of his spotless reputation. Every sentence was like brushstrokes in a work of art, and I reveled in the creativity. It didn't take long for the wheels to start turning. The moment those complaints hit Sam's company inbox, things got interesting. His bosses, the ones who probably saw him as their shining star, began to notice. And in a place like that, when the big bosses notice something, it's rarely good. I could imagine them sitting in those sleek boardroom chairs, shaking their heads in disbelief. What's going on with Sam? He was one of our best performers. Why are there so many complaints all of a sudden? But Sam, he had no clue. Everything was happening so smoothly, so quietly, that he couldn't possibly trace it back to me. I made sure of that. The complaints kept stacking up, and each one chipped away at his once perfect image. His bosses had no choice but to take action. And corporate action? It's never gentle. They probably started pulling him into awkward meetings, their faces full of concern but their minds already made up. The company launched an investigation, because when enough clients complain, they don't just let it slide. That's when I imagined Sam sweating bullets, sitting across from his bosses, trying to explain away the growing list of mistakes. I could see it. Him stumbling over his words, desperately trying to figure out why his world was falling apart. "It's just a misunderstanding," he might have said, his voice shaking. But once those complaints were on the table, his explanations didn't mean a thing. And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. That final crushing meeting where the bosses told him, "Sam, we've had too many complaints about your performance lately." There was no escape, no second chances. Just like that, they forced him to resign. They didn't need to spell it out for him. His career, his hard-earned reputation, all of it went up in smoke. He lost his job, his credibility, and most importantly, that air of superiority he loved to flaunt. But here's the thing. This was just the beginning. His resignation, that was the warm-up. I wasn't just satisfied with taking his job. No, that would have been too easy. I wanted Sam to feel every single second of his downfall, and this was only step one. He had no idea that the worst was yet to come, and I was planning it all with the kind of enthusiasm you'd expect from someone who's about to watch their masterpiece come to life. Sam hit rock bottom. He tried to rebuild his reputation like it was something he could just fix, like an old car. But no, his train had long left the station, and I was the one who floored the gas. With every desperate move he made, it was clear he was losing his confidence. His attempts to land any sort of job, to reconnect with people from his old life, all of it looked pathetic. But I didn't feel sorry for him. I knew this was justice. To cement the victory, I arranged a little gathering. Nothing too fancy, just a few of Sam's former colleagues who were now more than happy to hear the whole truth about him. I got them together in a cozy bar, ordered a few drinks, and smoothly steered the conversation to the main event of the night. "Guys, you ever wonder why Sam was such a disaster at the end?" I began, smiling. And then the show began. I laid out the evidence I had gathered about his manipulations and lies. "Remember that time he forgot to sign those papers? Yeah, that wasn't a mistake. He was covering his own mess." I dropped facts like trump cards in a poker game. Sam's former colleagues sat there, jaws dropping, some nodding, some laughing. It was clear that now everyone knew. Sam wasn't just a failure. He was a manipulator who used others to get ahead. And that time he took credit for that big project? Yeah, that was actually Linda's work. He just slapped his name on it, I said, showing the messages where Sam had literally stolen someone else's ideas. With every new fact, Sam's name got dirtier. In the eyes of these people, Sam had gone from a successful professional to a joke. His career and connections, all of it turned to dust. When Sam found out, when he finally realized that not only had he lost his job, but also everything, his reputation, his friends, his respect, he was broken. That was the moment I knew my revenge was complete. I had achieved my goal. Sam would never be able to hurt me or anyone else again. But here's the thing. It didn't make me happy. Yes, I felt satisfied that justice had been served, but it didn't bring me joy. Revenge, as it turned out, didn't fill the void I expected it to. All it did was reassure me of one thing. Sam would never hurt me again, and that, I guess, was the only real upside.